In the past few updates of Anime Last Stand, I think we've gotten the craziest characters maybe of all time. And it might get even crazier this weekend. Who knows, but today we'll be making a tier list ranking every meta unit in Anime Last Stand as of the Valentine's Part 2 update. Do keep in mind these rankings are entirely my opinion, so go easy on me in the comments, but I still hope you enjoy the video. If you do, maybe leave a like or subscribe. But anyways, let's get into it. So we should have a lot to talk about today. I'm gonna apologize beforehand for my voice being a little bit weird. I am feeling kind of stuffy, but we're gonna be starting with my tier list from the last video, the Luffy tier list, because we have so many units to talk about here that I don't want to waste time on ranking those again, so I'd recommend you check out that video there if you want an explanation for what we currently have ranked. Now we're going to be using the same rankings, meta overall, meta infinite, meta early, support, farms, and decent. And we're going to be talking about the new characters here, and also making a couple changes to this list, so let's get started. First, we should probably make some changes to the rankings here, because we definitely got some units that fell out of the meta with the past couple updates. So I'd say that Guts is moving down to decent because he is a full AoE regen stopper. His damage isn't really too good anymore, and there is just a better option for that now. Gilgamesh is an infinite unit for sure. He has his nuke going for him, but his damage really doesn't keep up. I'd say that Dio's moving down in the value of meta infinite here because he had his time stop going for him, and it got completely power crept by a new unit that we'll talk about. Pride and Jin Mori I'd say can move down to decent because those two godlies are pretty much entirely damage oriented, and they don't do good damage anymore. And then Goku, I'd say, same thing, his damage isn't really good, and he can probably go in the support tier now. He's a pretty good support depending on what team you want to run, but because they're better godlies, I'm just going to throw him about here anyway. Moving on to these buffed units here, we have Erwin, Eren, Aizen, Archer, and Ainz. And I talked about all of them in a separate video showcasing how they got buffed, but I'd say that Erwin is probably a meta support now, very very good, right behind Subaru. Eren's going in decent, he's okay. His damage is good, he's just like a damage only unit, and in a meta where damage is constantly increasing, not too crazy. Same could probably be said for Archer, these two are kind of interchangeable. Aizen, I'd say, his buff was huge, meta overall for sure. It made him usable in a bunch of different game modes, and his damage is really really crazy, probably right about here. And then Ainz, I'd say, same thing, his buff was very substantial, and you can use him in a lot of things now, I'd put him right about there. Next up, we have the Valentine's Part 1 units, and I do think these guys can be very, very good. So Yoruichi, I have an entirely separate video on her talking about how crazy she can be. She's a very high damage bullet unit, and I'd say probably right behind Giorno up here in overall meta. I think that Osoi is probably going in decent tier. He's okay for flat, raw damage, but he doesn't have anything special going for him. I'd put him probably right above Guts in terms of there. Yor is a pretty solid unit. She does good damage, but she's ground only. She also does have the weaken status effect, which can be pretty good for supporting. But again, she's ground only. And we already do have new releases that do more damage than her, so... Mitsuri I'd say is really good. She's a full AoE hemorrhage unit, so kind of like Guts' replacement there, in terms of cancelling regen. And she does just do really good damage, and I do have a separate video testing her out, and I personally think she is very strong. Here we have the Legacy Valentine's characters that got brought back and buffed. So Lightning Queen I'd say is a pretty good support. She's a full AoE conquered unit with okay damage. Yuta is just pure damage on final upgrade. He has nothing special going for him but a weird crit passive, a small buff to Gojo, and just a ton of damage. I'd say he'd probably go in decent right about here. Rios also I'd say is decent. She does pretty okay damage. She's a cone AoE, and she does have stun and then conquered. But overall, there are better options, I think. And then Fallen One has a very unique passive. She's going to be buffing units in her range by like, I think crit chance and a pretty solid amount of damage. But she is also going to debuff herself. She does okay damage, mostly support though, and probably right about here. Moving on to the final Valentine's Part 2 update, we have Bombi. And I would say that Bombi is a meta early unit. She's very cheap, she gets full AoE pretty early, and she just has really good damage on placement. And her damage at later upgrades is pretty good too. Fubuki, or Fubuki, I don't know how you pronounce it, but One Punch Man character. I don't actually have this unit myself, she's a tier 100 Battle Pass unit, but Otaku Gaming did spawn her in and showcase her, so I do know she is full AoE with Blizzard, very high damage, and then she is pretty cheap and has good damage on placement. So I'd say she's meta overall, and I'd say probably right behind Yoruichi, I think. The Immortal, or I think Shion from Tensura. This unit is very good for just raw damage. She's pretty cheap to get full AoE if I remember correctly, She does have a passive that is going to help her a lot in late wave content, because she can increase her damage up to 75%. So she does a lot of really good raw damage. On final upgrade, she is only a line AoE with the cripple stats effect. Overall, I'd say probably top of decent. Her damage can be really good, but we are currently in a meta where the damage is like always increasing, so I don't know how long she is going to be good. Roger, this guy is from the tournaments, he finally got released. I'd say kind of disappointing, honestly. I think that like he can be good because he has a passive that can increase his damage by up to 50% if you have pirates on his team. With that 50% damage increase, he does some really solid damage. He has also a full AoE Conquer Duna, I believe, with a pretty good nuke. But overall, like, standard team comp, if you're not running a full pirate team, his damage is kind of lacking, and I'd go ahead and put him in decent right behind Yuta. Finally, we have Kurumi, the new secret unit of the Valentine's Part 2 update, and I would argue this is the strongest unit of the game. You might be wondering why she has 3 different icons. I usually don't do that, but that is because she has 3 different modes. She has a DPS mode, a support mode, and a buff mode, and they're all good for different things. I do have a full in-depth showcase on her if you want to check that out and see what each form does, but pretty much the buff form is going to be a really good buffer for her teammates. I'd say she top of support if you run her on buff. It is very, very good. Her support form, mostly, in my opinion, the most of the value that's going to come from that is she has a chance to kill on, I think, her 5th attack. That is going to be very good in Infamous, kind of like Ryuk, but in my opinion, just better. And then her DPS form, which does some really crazy damage. It has, I think, the 2nd highest single target damage in the game and the highest AoE DPS in the game. I'd say I put her probably right behind Sun Jin-woo. Another thing about Kurumi is that any form, whether you're on DPS, support, or buff, is going to have a very strong time stop. That is pretty much what power crept Dio, and made him really useless in my opinion. I don't know why you'd run Dio instead of just running Kurumi's time stop, because hers is a 90-second time stop if I remember correctly, with I think a 20% uptime, so it has like a 500-second cooldown. So very, very good, and every form has it. And I think that's pretty much the list. I'm going to make one final change and probably put Rimuru back a bit. I think I put Rimuru too high. But otherwise, I think this is the final ranking. I think we have the final tier list. Here we go. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please do so respectfully, because keep in mind this is just my opinion from the research that I have personally done. I do think a lot of people might be mad about this one specifically because I did like move godlies down, and really some of these are like hard to accept. I mean, if these were your favorite godlies, I can understand why people would be angry that I put them in decent now. But the game has been really getting power crept recently. We've had some crazy units dropping. The meta has been changing a lot, and I think we gotta accept that. So even if some of these might make you sad to see, I think it is kind of the truth of the game right now. But anyways, yeah, that's the ranking. Hopefully you enjoyed or found it helpful. Thank you to my channel members for making this video possible. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one, and have a great day.